afternoon, and welcome. Yes, welcome indeed to a Thursday edition of the Mark Moses Show podcast as we are broadcasting live here on the Space Coast, always from also the Anidjar and Levine Accident Attorney Studios. Take back control of your life. Call them today, 1-800-747-FREE. That's 1-800-747-3733. Anidjar and Levine Accident Attorneys. And if you miss anything from the show, podcasts, links, social media, go to markmosesshow.com. Now, this gentleman, he runs around like a maniac. He works 18 straight days in a row. He doesn't have a funny shirt on today, but he's still Mr. 321. Yes, Tim Walters, Florida Today. My man, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great, Mark. Sometimes I'm just too busy to go find something fun to wear. Sorry about that.
Don't worry. I do the same thing as well, where I'm scrambling. Mark, you have to be on TV in 30 seconds. I grab a shirt, I put it on. I promise I'm wearing pants right now. But yes, thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming on. Let's start with this. I want to start here. And then we got high school, college, and NFL to get to. All right. It's the 24th anniversary of September 11th. I say this every year. I'll say mine, then you say yours. I was in college at Western Illinois. I was in my dorm room 24 years ago. My buddy Matt called me up. He said, turn on the TV. I turned it on. I was in complete shock. I thought we were watching like a science fiction Twilight Zone episode at first. As one of the scariest days, I called my family. Everyone was fine, but man, that's one of the scariest days ever for the United States of America. How about you, Tim, 24 years later?
Yeah, Mark, and we should remind people there was no social media, there was no videos, you were glued to television sets. You know, cell phones were fairly scarce in 2001. In fact, I didn't get my first cell phone till almost a year after September 11th. But so for my story on September 11th, you have to first go back to September 10th. I was the sports editor for the Village's Daily Sun. I was all of 24 years old. I was maybe a year and a half, not even out of college, a little more than a year out of college. Well, the night before, I had put the newspaper to bed, and we had late deadlines back then. I don't think the paper was put to bed till like 12:30 in the morning. Then you had to look at the proofs. I lived in Ocala, which is 25 minutes north of the Villages, so I had to drive home, made myself something to eat. At that time, I probably didn't go to bed till 4 a.m. So the next day I wake up close to noon, as I normally did because I work nights at the time. And so I wake up at noon, and it was a little bit later than I normally woke up. And so I was just like, yeah, I got to get dressed, got to go to work. So, I get dressed, never turned the television on. That day I had been planning on going to Arby's for lunch, love myself a beef and cheddar. So I go to Arby's probably at about 1 o'clock. I'm eating my beef and cheddar, and I was like, gosh, for lunchtime, Arby's is really empty. It seemed weird to me. So I finished my lunch, got in my car, drove to work. And then as I'm walking up to the building about 2 p.m, one of the news reporters says to me, what are you going to be putting in the sports section tonight? And I was like, well, I'm not sure. I got to see what's going on. And she goes, no, I mean, you're probably not going to have a sports section. And I was like, what are you talking about? She says, where have you been all day? She's like, the Twin Towers have been destroyed. 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I may have been the last person in America to hear about it, Mark.
That is wild, dude. You're right, because at the time, no text messaging, like even email, like you had instant messaging. By the way, I know, a crazy to tell a kid. We used to do like AOL Instant Messenger to talk to each other. Like, no, you wouldn't really check your email like you do now. No text messaging. You had to call people up physically and like do it. So yeah, it was very scary. And I remember school was canceled for the rest of the day. People went home. All flights were shut down probably for a couple days. No sports. I had a guy yesterday, and I did the update, and it was very sad where, Charlie Kirk passed away. And someone wrote like, I had the different comments on my timeline, and one said, hey, I want you to be the escape for sports. And look, I get it. Everyone has their opinion on it. So it's interesting. There were no sports after September 11th for maybe about 10 days or so. Like, kind of like when we went through the pandemic, everything got shut down. Remember, it was a Tuesday. no baseball for the rest of the week, no NFL or college football for about a couple days. Dude, it was crazy. And I always think of 2001. I think of that World Series with the Yankees. After that happened to them, and when they took on Arizona, those crowds like, if you've never seen it, go on YouTube and watch those World Series games in New York. Remember, the Yankees came back all 3 games to win. Wild. Just wild crowds. They really were, Tim.
Yeah, so Mark, a couple of things I remember. I think that baseball started playing 2 or 3 days later with no crowds. Because I do remember I ran a front page, a big photo on the front page of the paper, and it was Barry Bonds coming out of the dugout. And I think that was the year he was chasing 73, and you just saw nothing but empty seats. And I revisited that newspaper lately because I put a hammerhead, a little saying over the photo for a song that I love from the late 80s by a band. Not a lot of people maybe have heard of them. Savatage, Savatage. They later became Trans-Siberian Orchestra, so people probably know some of their music. But back in the 80s, they had a song called When the Crowds Are Gone. Look it up, great song. But I put that over the photo because that's what I thought about. Barry Bonds coming out to play a baseball game in front of no one when the crowds are gone. But the actual 9/11 day, so I started doing some work for the Daily Sun. I talked to a radio host in New York who was on live at the time, and I did an interview with him. I also spoke to a media member who was doing a live hit near the Pentagon and heard it, but didn't see it when the planes hit the Pentagon. So that day I was a news reporter by trade, put a different hat on. But for me personally, my family is all from the Long Island area, Nassau County. My grandmother was born in Brooklyn. So, we have strong ties there. I had 2 distant cousins who were firemen. Luckily, they survived, but they were down at ground zero for, days and days and weeks. So I did have some family members who were there, but, it's one of those things that you'll never forget. I slept through it, but just, watching it, obviously on the news, they kept showing over and over the planes hitting it. And then there was more video coming in because if you remember, it happened live. I think they had a shot on Good Morning America or something like that. One had hit the first tower, and so they had a camera fixed on the 2 towers, and then the second plane came in. People saw that live on television, and it was just, I can't even describe it, but I do remember so much surrounding it.
I remember being in that, what was a Washington Square, where you could see from the distance. I was there in August of 2001. I remember seeing the 2 towers from a distance when you're walking around Manhattan. And I've been back a couple times since. We're in that same spot, and now you see the Freedom Tower. It's bizarre. Have you been to Ground Zero and seen the Freedom Tower? Have you done that before?
No, in fact, the last time I was in New York City was 11 months to the day after 9/11. So I was there August 11th, 2002. Me and 3 of my best friends, we had planned a road trip where we would drive from Brevard all the way up to New York. Took in a game at Old Yankee Stadium. We did a tour in New York City. And then when all that was done, we drove up to Boston, took in a game at Fenway Park. And we took in the city of Boston, did the Paul Revere Trail, and went to Cheers and all of those things. Yeah. Then we drove straight across to the Hall of Fame at Cooperstown, 2002. Ozzie Smith was the only one being elected that year, so his bust was center stage at the Hall of Fame. We spent a couple of days in Cooperstown, drove all the way over to Chicago, did a Cubs game, and then drove back. But in our trip to New York, when we went downtown, I can still remember just the huge hole in the earth. It looked like a meteor had hit New York City, and they were still clearing it all out. It was still an active construction zone, but people were packed in there like you were waiting for It's a Small World at Disney. I mean, it was just people just all around it, and you just kind of walk in one way and flow around and take your pictures, and people would leave. But I still have, that back then I remember carrying, because we didn't have our cell phone cameras, I had one of those little yellow Kodak cameras where you had to and then it'd have the 24 pictures, and once you were out, you were out. So I brought like 4 of those with me for our entire excursion, and I had to be very judicious on what photos I was taking.
That's all, dude. Now you can take 10,000 photos. Yeah. There's no problem. That's so funny you bring that up. And I imagine on your trip you had $50 to your name as you're going to New York, and like that's what I imagine. Oh man, that's a cool trip. Yeah, I have been to Ground Zero. It's beyond emotional to go there. And you see all the names. They did a phenomenal job creating that with the waterfall. And like, again, those people were real heroes. We always throw that around. Those firefighters and those police officers and everyone involved, those were real heroes. It's sad they passed away. And I tell this to everyone, if you ever get a chance as a U.S. citizen, if you love this country, you got to go there once in your life. You have to see Ground Zero. You got to see the Freedom Tower. Again, if you're not used to big cities, and I grew up in Chicago where it's like a massive big city, it's still overwhelming for me walking around Manhattan and you don't even see the sun. There's so many buildings everywhere. It is overwhelming, but thank you for sharing that. All right. And it's interesting. Everyone has their own account of what happened that day. And I think of the baby boomer generation, our parents pretty much, where they all knew where they were when JFK was assassinated, and they have the moon landing and all these. And then we have that. And it's funny, like your daughter, she has no idea what we're talking about. She wasn't born yet. Like the young kids in high school have no idea about September 11th. They didn't go through it. So thank you for saying that. Let's go to high school football. I'm going to bring this up here. I know we have a change. Okay, I made this on Monday. Let me bring this up better here. I had this Monday. I know Melbourne switched it up. They now have, it's a Palm Beach Christian Prep, 7 o'clock with the start. But here are the games coming up. It's week 4 and week 5, depending on what you're in. Let me bring you back up on here. All right. What do you think of this schedule, buddy? Tim, I'll let you take it over.
Yeah, a lot of fun games. One thing I'm going to point out, Mark, and if you follow along at floridatoday.com or 321 Preps, we do our high school football rankings every week where we rank our top 10 high school football programs in Brevard County. And one team has dominated that for so long, we couldn't figure out when the last time they weren't number one, and that's Cocoa. Well, in our rankings released today, for the first time, probably, I'm just guessing because we literally couldn't find, probably for the first time since about 2005 or 6, Cocoa is not our number one team. They won a double overtime game against Merritt Island week 1. They got kind of beat up a little bit by Daytona Beach Mainland, or was it Seabreeze Mainland? It was. And then they lost last week pretty bad to Vero Beach. So O'Galley High School has surpassed Cocoa to take that number one spot. Now, we put a lot of thought and effort into this, and Chastity Banks, our preps reporter, and we discuss all of these things. Now, one of the main factors, it's not just that O'Galley's 2-1 and Cocoa's 1-2, but O'Galley lost their quarterback early against Vero Beach and still only lost 41-31, whereas Cocoa, I think that score was something like 45-3. So right now, O'Galley moves into our number one spot. I think they have the number one player in the county in Xavier Larice. So congratulations to O'Galley for unseating an unprecedented run that we'll probably not see in high school sports for a long time in this area.
Yeah, I think the stat is Cocoa's not lost to a Brevard County team since 2019. So like before the pandemic, they've just been so dominant. And hey, they're still 3 straight state champions. Okay, and I'm going to agree with you. O'Galley should be number one. But I'm not saying Cocoa like, oh, just pack it up. You guys are terrible. No. They still get to play football games moving forward. And they've been kind of 500 to start the last couple of years anyway. See, this is my question for you then. Do you think it's, hey, they want hard scheduling. They want to take on tough teams. What the kids would say, you want the smoke, right? You want the tough opponents. What are your thoughts then? Where it's like, okay, we took on all these hard teams. Now we're losing. Now what? What do you think for scheduling?
Well, here's part of it is, I mean, look, you lost the last 2 state of Florida Mr. Footballs last year when your quarterback and your wide receiver left. The quarterback, Brady Hart, going to Texas A&M, and the wide receiver now, Javon Boggs, contributing with that really good Florida State team. So when you lose that, I mean, that's just a kick in the teeth. So you're breaking in a new quarterback. You're breaking in some new skilled players, although they still have a great running back. They have, one of the best defensive players in the state. So it's not like they're hard luck. It's just that you got a learning curve. We're going to find out in a couple of weeks anyhow, because Cocoa plays O'Galley, and then all of this seeding nonsense won't make a hill of beans to anybody. But, it's usually beyond those two. it's interesting to see who's 3 through 8, because really in Brevard County, we have a lot of parity going on. So it's kind of ranking those other teams that gets a little bit harder, because you know who the top two are going to be. Even if Cocoa was 1-4, they might still be our number 2 team, unless they would have lost, as you said, to an in-county team. In 2019, I believe that was Rockledge that beat them. And prior to that, it had been a really long time since they had lost to a county team. So, yeah, I mean, Coco's just been on an unprecedented 2-decade run.
Yeah, and look, they should have lost to Merritt Island. I give credit to Cocoa. They won week 1, but Merritt Island should have won that game. And Cocoa should be 0-3. But, hey, they played on the field. All right. So I'm going to bring this back up if I could do this correctly. Okay. What games? You see this right here. Astronaut at Space Coast. Holy Trinity at Bayside. Cocoa at Heritage is going to be a good game. What's your game? Just with your gut, which game do you like that you would go check out this Friday?
Yeah, I mean, as you mentioned, I think Cocoa Heritage might be maybe one of the best ones of the week. Look, I'm a Merritt Island Mustang. Playing Palm Bay always really kind of meant something. I'm also looking forward to the Vieira and Titusville game, because I think that those are 2 really good programs. You have the battle for the surfboard out there, Satellite and Cocoa Beach. Now they're, Cocoa Beach is independent. Satellite's in the SSAA, so neither of them are FHSAA programs. Astronaut and Space Coast is going to be interesting too, and here's why, Mark. So Astronaut's a revamped program that's been playing really well. They got their first loss last week. Space Coast is 3-0. Again, they moved out of the FHSAA to the SSAA. They won a state championship there last year. They're 3-0, but they've really kind of waylaid their competition. So we're going to find out a lot about Space Coast playing Astronaut, because Astronaut is a good FHSAA team that can stand up against some of the bigger teams. So I think that I'll have some interest there to find out a little bit more about Space Coast and how good they are. But, I always love the battle for the surfboard, Satellite and Cocoa Beach. That game always means something. Somebody's going to get that surfboard after the game. That used to be the last game of the year for those 2 teams, but now things have changed. So I kind of miss that as a season ender. And then the one other storyline is, if you would have told me after 3 weeks Rockledge would be the only team in the county without a win, I would have thought you were crazy. And now they're playing Daytona Beach Seabreeze. So, you're hoping Rockledge can pick up that first victory.
Battle for the surfboard. All right. If you and me took on each other, would it be battle for the transformer? What would our be? What would battle for the turkey sandwich? What would our rivalry be exactly?
It would be lame. That's what it would be, Mark.
Yeah, it'd be like battle for the Homer Simpson's trophy. That's what it would be. All right. What coverage can we check out, you guys, of the Florida Today for high school football coming up this weekend?
Yeah, so as always, we have our live updating scoreboard at floridatoday.com. So make sure you check that out throughout the night. We are constantly updating that. It's kind of like the red zone, Mark. Every time a touchdown happens, we have little spies around the county texting us, and we are feeding them into that scoreboard. We have what I think is the best scoreboard in the state. So make sure you check that out. Chastity Banks will be out covering at least 2 games, as she normally does. I know we're shooting photos up at Astronaut and Space Coast, and then we may be getting a freelance photographer to shoot a second game, because photo galleries do real well from the high school game. So as always, that's 321 Preps, floridatoday.com. Make sure to check out all of our great coverage. And I'll mention this too, Mark. You mentioned the battle for the Homer Simpson trophy. One of my favorite Christmas presents I ever got was from my college roommate. He gave me the 2nd annual C. Montgomery Burns Award for Outstanding Achievement in the Field of Excellence. If you remember that, he gave Homer the award so he wouldn't sue the plant. So Homer got the first one. I got the second one, Mark.
And by the way, photography at the Florida Today, Craig Bailey, happy birthday, buddy. I know it was a couple days ago. And I bet this is what I love. So look, the parents, they're like, all right, where are these photos? So they go on your website. All right. So you post 100 photos. The parents are like, where is my son? Give me the photo of my son. And they're searching like they're Harrison Ford in some action movie. Where's my son? And they're texting away. You guys do a great job with those photos. You really do. So those are coming up tomorrow night. Let's go to college football and the $10 million question. No. Probably $25 million buyout question. So the Gators gave up 18 points to South Florida and lost last Saturday night. I'm still upset about it. How hot is the hot seat on Billy Napier at Florida right now, buddy?
I mean, look, the only thing that's kind of keeping him there, you mentioned the 25 million. Well, last year when they were looking to buy him out, it was over 30. So it's slowly whittling away. The Gator Collective has said we have enough money to buy him out, but I don't think they're going to get rid of him over the next few weeks because what are you going to do? You fire Napier, you bring in an interim coach to face LSU and Miami and Texas A&M and Texas. They're probably going to. Hey, if they win all four, Billy looks like a hero. If they lose all four, they're 1-5. Then they may think of canning him for the rest of the season. But why send out somebody out there to be demoralized like that? Now, look, there's a few problems. Number one, I think the Gators' defense looks as good as it's looked in years. DJ Lagway just doesn't look healthy. He was dealing with a shoulder that he should have had surgery on. He's running on a calf injury that's usually linked to Achilles issues. So you hope he doesn't pop that. He was missing throws that he can make. So there's definitely some issues there. And Billy Napier is just terrible at clock management. We've known that for 4 years. He did so many things terribly during that game. And I mean, Mark, I've wasted a lot of breath telling you that this guy, he needs help and he refuses to get it. And so, you reap what you sow in life. He thinks he's smarter than everybody. He doesn't know how to manage a clock. He doesn't know how to call plays. So he's going to be gone. It's not if, it's when, but I don't think it will be until after this gauntlet of games.
Wow, given the best man speech right there. Fantastic. Fantastic. All right, so here's what I just heard. All right, well, if the quarterback wasn't injured and if the play calling wasn't bad and if he knew clock, if those things didn't happen, the Gators would win the game. The problem, they all happened. All of them. Again, if I would have told you South Florida was going to score 18 points, you're like, well, the Gators are going to win. No, I'm with you on Lagway. He's only started about 5-6 games at Florida, and he's completely banged up. Can his body sustain a full season? I'd say no right now. He did not play in the spring. He didn't really play in fall camp. He's not healthy. He's not mobile. They look one-dimensional. And you know what? It's probably going to happen. They're probably going to compete and play great for 4 quarters at LSU. That's exactly what's going to happen. I'm calling my shot. I'm not saying, the Gators are going to win by 50. No, they're going to play for 4 quarters. That's what's going to happen.
Look, they could very well win that LSU game.
Oh, yeah.
They didn't impress me. I watched that Clemson game. I think Nussmeier might be a little bit overrated himself. So, we'll see what happens there. And I went from hating USF with a passion to being their biggest fan because I hope they knock off Miami this Saturday at 4:30.
Hey, if they beat Miami, or at least if they play 4 quarters of football and it's close and they go to 2-1 against 3 ranked opponents, hey, they can win the American. Why can't they go to the playoff? That's what? Like you and me talked before the season. They're probably going to start 0-3. that was our prediction.
Well, and then watch, the Gators will fire Billy Napier and hire the USF head coach.
Yeah. I saw there was like a report out of Jacksonville, and my dad called me up and asked me about this. He's like, hey, did you see this rumor about John Gruden? I'm like, stop it. Why don't you just throw out Bugs Bunny as a name while you're at it? Just like, what? This is like, I want your thoughts. This is like Bill Belichick. Never coached in college. Hasn't been around for a couple years. And you're just going to show up in the current state of NIL transfer portal. What? Stop. I'd rather have you as the coach than that name. What are your thoughts, Tim?
My buyout would be a lot lower than his. I'll tell you that. Obviously Gruden's name always gets thrown around. It's ridiculous. I hope he takes the left turn at Albuquerque and doesn't find his way to Florida, since you mentioned Bugs Bunny. Boy, is that a dated reference these days. But anyhow, look, the Gators, they want Lane Kiffin if they're going to get rid of Napier. That's who they wanted last year, and Kiffin said no. If Ole Miss isn't doing well this year, they're going to go after him again next year. They want Lane Kiffin. It's been no secret. After that, I don't know who they're going to go after. I mean, look.
I know.
The USF head coach, I'm not kidding about that. He coached circles around Billy Napier with a good team, but it just sometimes coaching matters, and in that game, it certainly did.
Here's the difference. So Mike Norvell was awful last year. They went 2-10 at Florida State. They were pitiful. And he probably looked in the mirror and said, I need help. I'm going to go get Gus Malzahn to run my offense. He knows what he's doing. I need help. And it's helped. They scored okay, I get it. They played East Texas A&M, which I didn't even know was a school. They scored 11 touchdowns in one football game, a school record. They killed Alabama in week 1. They look like a contender. And then at Florida, Napier, even earlier this week at his presser, was like, no, I'm still calling the plays. So he's going to die on that hill. That's what he's done. He should have brought in a coordinator to help him run the offense. And I think that might be his downfall, Tim.
Yeah, no question at all. That's exactly what I'm saying. He needed help, and he just wouldn't go out and get it. The difference, too, though, Mark, even when Mike Norvell was losing last year, and I think I said it on this show multiple times, it's like you lost a lot of players, the transfer portal killed him, but he's still a good coach. And you can see it. He's still a good coach. Billy Napier has shown me way too much just what the heck are you doing over the last 4 years that I can't justify it the same way. I think Norvell coaches circles around him.
After 40 games, he's 20-20. That's a 500 coach. And the numbers don't lie. What is the thing? Gator boys stay hot, and also the numbers don't lie. They don't. And we've met him. He's a great guy. I like talking to him when we were at the Gator event. And I met him another time at Media Days in Nashville. I like Napier. I want them to win. I do. And I want DJ Lagway to perform well. I do. I don't want to sit here and talk about that the Gators suck with you every Thursday. I don't. So I hope I hope I'm trying to be genuine when I say this, Tim, to you.
Yeah, well, then let's stop talking about it, Mark.
Oh, I know. By the way, I like where they had the Powerball. I know they have a winner. I like they were interviewing Alabama fans, and Alabama fans were like, this makes me laugh. Bama fans are like, if I win that Powerball, I'm gonna buy out Kalen DeBoer, and you probably saw what I wrote on Facebook. I was like, look, if I win the Powerball, if I did, I'm moving to Paris, France. I'll continue to do this show, and I'm going to date supermodels with my $1 billion. Forget Kalen DeBoer. You're thinking too small. Sorry. That's how I feel.
I hope you'd wear a beret while doing your show, Mark, from France.
And I'm having the mustache. It's going to be great. All right, let's go. Let's bring this up here. All right, I'm trying not to laugh here. So, Gators at LSU, Saturday night, 7:30 with the kickoff. Big game in South Florida. As Tim said, South Florida at Miami, same time, 7:30. UCF and Florida State. I love we're in week 3 and they both get the bye. Okay. Then tonight, Thursday night football. All right. We have a good one. I don't have it on the screen, but yes, Thursday night, good one. Commanders, Packers. All right. Patriots, Dolphins Sunday, Jags at Bengals. I want your thoughts. I want your thoughts on the Jaguars. Hey man, I know they took on a high school team, but want to know how they get it done, buddy.
Yeah, first, Mark, I do have to correct. Your graphic says Miami and South Florida is at 7:30. It's at 4:30.
Oh, okay. All right. Time out. My buyout will be $30 million as the graphics. Did I write that wrong? All right. Did I write it? Okay. Here's the actual sheet. Let's see how I wrote it here. Yeah, I wrote 7:30. All right. I'm out. All right. Call to the pen. Get someone better here. Okay, how did the Jaguars get it done?
Yeah, so several things. Number one, Liam Cohen opting to get the ball first, right? They flip the coin, they win. Last week, only 2 teams did that who won the coin toss and opted to get the ball first. It was the Jaguars and the Colts, and they both won. So, opting to just do something that simple and then going on a 16-yard or 16-play drive and scoring a touchdown. So, good start for Cohen. You're right. Carolina is not the greatest team. They were an improved team, but the Jaguars they did their thing. They ran the football. ETN looked like he did 2 years ago, not last year. Yeah. Solid there. And then, Trevor used a lot of receivers. Travis Hunter ended up having the most receptions at 6, but he only had 33 yards. They were on shorter routes, but still getting the rookie involved there. And so they did, and their defense looked really good. Of course, again, not playing the greatest of offense. So we're going to find out a lot this week when they play the Bengals. But hey, Joe Burrow, when's the next time you're going to see Joe Burrow only throw for like 100 yards? That's not going to happen against the Jaguars. And the Jaguars last year were terrible against the run. and the Bengals didn't run the ball particularly well. So, I wouldn't be surprised if the Jaguars pull off an upset. I don't think they will in Cincinnati. I think the Bengals will win, as probably most people do. But I don't think this is going to be some sort of large blowout. And if Liam Cohen pulls this thing out, I mean, people are really going to start staring up there because there's a fairly favorable schedule coming up for the Jaguars. And it would be great to see. But, I also have Joe Burrow on my fantasy football team, so I need him to do well.
Oh, okay, that's the most important part. Okay, I'm sorry. I hope your fantasy team loses horribly and the Jaguars win. Okay. All right. So Travis Hunter, like you said, 6 catches. My question for you, Tim Walters, as yes, he joins us on the Anidjar and Levine Accident Attorneys studio. If Travis Hunter could be the best shutdown corner, the number one best defensive cornerback in football, would that mean more to the team or him catching 5 or 6 passes a game? I think that's the question moving forward. Because I know they're trying to figure this out, but how do you approach it after what you saw in week 1?
But look, with Andre Sisco and Jordan Lewis, he's only the 3rd best corner at best. And I think he's our 2nd best receiver behind Brian Thomas Jr. So I say take advantage of him on the offensive side because you now have the right pieces on the defensive side. You're going to see him more and more. You're going to have to this week. I think he only played 6 defensive plays last week. So it wasn't a lot. And he's also learning more on that side of the ball. Liam Cohen has said we're going to see him more. I mean, look, you got Jamar Chase. You've got T. Higgins. So, Burrow's going to be slinging the ball around a lot this week. And, those corners, they're going to be tired. They're going to be worn out. So I think you're going to see him play maybe 12 to 15 snaps on defense. So we'll keep an eye on it. I think, young guy, he's super athletic. You got to give him a chance on both sides. And, I'm looking forward to seeing, I think the big thing is going to be 2 things for Hunter that are going to be a big deal when he gets his first interception and when he gets his first touchdown of any kind. And, people are still waiting for that.
And he cut his hair off. I don't know if you saw this. Everything is news now with this guy. Everything. Because you said he bought the house. He had the kid. He cut the hair. I mean, like completely cut it off. And he just shows up. Hey, guys. Yeah, people noticed that. They did.
He also, right, Mark, random fact about him. He's got a younger brother who's a football player in Georgia, and he's a junior. And we just had a story about him. Travis's brother is Travis. It's Travis just with a Y added, Trayvis. So Travis and Travis, and maybe their sister Mavis. No, that's made up. But
no, and I'll stop your corny jokes there. No, I appreciate what you bring to the table. So you brought up ETN. He had a good game. Then Monday, during Monday Night Football, the Jaguars announced, yeah, we're trading Tank Bigsby to the Philadelphia Eagles. Wow. Think about how cutthroat sports is in this country. So you go through training camp, you go through the preseason, you go through week 1, and then on Monday Night Football, you get traded. But you get traded to the Super Bowl champions. What are your thoughts, buddy?
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into it too, Mark, because a lot of people thought ETN would be the one gone. He's in the final year of his rookie contract. Tank Bigsby and him were supposed to be splitting time. Here's the other advantage having Travis Hunter gives you is it opened up a roster spot. So instead of keeping 3 running backs, they played 4 running backs last week. They were able to keep both of their rookies, Bashal Tootin and
So I can't think of it either. It's okay.
Yeah, LaQuinta Allen. So, and both of them played really well. So the Jaguars ultimately, Cohen really likes a lot of movement in his offense. And look, Tank Bigsby is a good running back, but he's kind of cut from that cloth of Saquon Barkley, where he's a big, strong, bruising guy that runs into things head first like he's on fire. Cohen wants guys who are slashing, moving, catching the ball, outside the pocket. They're an extra weapon to toss to. And Tank Bigsby was the odd man out from those 4 guys. So by keeping had and knowing that they also had a commodity to get more draft picks, they traded him away to the Eagles. And a lot of people are like, well, why would they do that? He's not going to play a lot there. Saquon Barkley, I mean, he's a physical freak, but can he survive the type of beating, or can you maybe spare him some of the beating by getting another big, powerful physical runner? So, they had to make a move of some sort. I don't think it surprised a lot of people that it was Bigsby. I just think the timing of it after week 1, like you say, was a little odd, but it was because he got to see what he wanted to see in game conditions. And, that was the decision they made.
Duval is 1-0, and yes, they will take on the Bungles, as I like to call them. Who day? See, it's who day. I don't know if you know this. It's very stupid. Bengals go with who day. The Saints fans go with who dat. Okay, and my team, the Bears, say, "Please God, can we get a quarterback who can throw the football?" That's our saying. His name's Tim Walters, Florida Today newspaper. My man, thanks for your help. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you around, all right?
Thank you, Mark. And I love it when a plan comes together.